The big thing is that we're going to hear from Gordon Sondland today. He is a key figure in all of this. He's the ambassador to the EU, but he's also crucial because he was one of the so-called three amigos who were leading Ukraine policy for the White House. Now, we're going to break down what he's expected to say today, but first, let's get a recap of yesterday's marathon hearing. These are the four career diplomats we heard from yesterday. In the morning, we heard from Jennifer Williams, an advisor to Vice President Mike Pence, and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, a National Security Council expert. Both of them were listening on President Trump's now infamous phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
I found the July 25th phone call unusual.
Without hesitation, I knew that I had to report this to the White House counsel.
Then there was the afternoon testimony, where we heard from Kurt Volker, the former special envoy to Ukraine, and Tim Morrison, who used to work for the National Security Council. Volker dismissed allegations against former Vice President Joe Biden and any investigation into his son's role with a Ukrainian energy company.
The allegations against Vice President Biden are self-serving and not credible.
Lastly, there was Morrison. He believed that there was nothing impeachable or illegal about the phone call, but he still hoped the transcript wouldn't get out.
I feared at the time of the call on July 25th how its disclosure would play in Washington's political climate.
And that brings us to today's testimony. And Gordon Sondland, you may remember, it was in mid-October when he testified that he knew of no so-called quid pro quo. But weeks later, he reversed that with some added testimony, saying he now recalled a conversation with a Ukrainian official where he personally warned, quote, that resumption of U.S. aid would likely not occur until Ukraine provided the public anti-corruption statement that we'd been discussing for many weeks. It's a changing story, essentially outlining a quid pro quo. All right, and then another update. Last week, another Ukraine aide said he was at a restaurant in Ukraine with Sondland when President Trump called. This aide said the president was speaking loudly enough that he could hear him ask about the investigations on the phone. According to this aide, when Sondland got off the phone, he said that the president didn't really care about Ukraine, just, quote, the big stuff, like the Biden investigation. So you can bet Sondland's going to get a lot of questions about this interaction.
And apologies to Mr. Vindman's family. It is Lieutenant Colonel.
Right.
Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. Now,
somebody called him Mr. We should explain.
Yes.
Somebody called him Mr. and
Yes.
then he said, no, it's Lieutenant Colonel to you.
Hey, you know, you got to correct people. Make them give you your respect. Now, this one has been different than some of the other testimony we've seen recently because this is drawn out over such a long period of time. So it hasn't had the crested attention that you get on one particular day. But unlike those, this one, it seems that people are actually paying attention from both sides and actually thinking a little bit more independently than I saw with previous testimony.
Right. Although it's this web of people that most people had never heard of before the last couple of weeks. Sondland should be different because he's been making headlines for weeks now.
All right. Thank you for following the story, Evan.